Thank you all for taking time to review my presentation today. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself to all of you. My name is Knute Alger, and I'm a graduate student here at St. Mary's University. By the end of this summer, I'll have finished my MBA program with a certificate in project management. I also completed my undergraduate degree here at St. Mary's, and to say the least, it's been a wonderful journey full of learning opportunities and wonderful communications with so many people. I hope you've all had the same experience as well. Professionally, I'm a project manager and a certified Scrum Master with US Bank, where I've been employed for the past 8 years. For all of you who may be considering project management as a career, I can share with you firsthand what a wonderful and challenging occupation it can be. Prior to US Bank, I worked for Wells Fargo for a couple of years as a project manager, and prior to that, I owned and operated a mortgage brokerage firm, a property acquisition company, and an insurance agency for 15 years. I began in the finance industry at a time when interest rates for purchasing a home were in the high 2-digit range, and we had to tell customers to press hard because there were 3 copies of the documents that they were signing. Today, well, sometimes we don't even need to see customers to complete financial transactions. What a joy it's been to see how things have changed over the years and what challenges it's been to keep up with the fast-paced market and technology that supports it. It was this combination of these 2 things that spurred my interest in pursuing my academic studies here at St. Mary's University of Minnesota. For my presentation today, I've selected a topic not because it was easy, but because it truly isn't as easy as it may seem. This presentation will demonstrate that the process of brainstorming can be an effective tool for identification of management of project risk. For today's agenda, we'll be going through the definition of brainstorming, the origins of brainstorming, why do organizations use brainstorming, and how does brainstorming work? After all, that's why we're here today. We'll find out that there are 2 components or 2 structures that are used. There's a structured approach and an unstructured approach, and the 6 steps that set those approaches up. We'll also cover brainstorming techniques and brainstorming pros and cons. In the end, I'll wrap up with the conclusion and share my references for how I compiled the work for this presentation. As we begin, if you were to look up the definition of brainstorming, you would come across many similar but still different definitions. My presentation of brainstorming, however, will begin by asking you to take the next 20 seconds and determine how many black dots you see on the image. If you're like many others, a quick glance will reveal that there are in fact black dots in the image. Rushing to an answer, some may think that they see 10 dots, while others may believe they see 20, 30, or more dots. However, when you go to count them, the task proves impossible. Why is that? Because there truly aren't any black dots at all. What you're looking at is an illusion. The problem you've been asked to solve appears to have a reasonable way to determine what the answer should be. However, it isn't until you've taken the time to look thoroughly through the problem completely and carefully analyze the image that the answer is revealed. This image reminds me in some ways of brainstorming for project risk. When brainstorming for project risk, the team begins with a problem to solve. For the purposes of this presentation, we'll use the question, what risks are associated with the project? Like the black dots on the screen, some people will see things in one way, while other people will see them in another. To determine if a risk is truly a project risk will require a detailed review of all the risks identified by the team. Like the black dots on the screen, when put to the test, some risks may be found not to be risks at all. So then, it's my observation that brainstorming as a team should be a quick exercise to generate answers to a specific problem. The results should be thoroughly reviewed by the team to determine that the answers the team provided are truly risks And if not, eliminate those responses that are deemed by the team to not really address the problem. We'll discuss this in further detail as we proceed. Origins of brainstorming. The word brainstorming originally was introduced nearly 70 years ago by Alex F. Osborne. The term was first used in 1953 in his book Applied Imagination, Principles and Procedures of Creative Thinking. This, however, was not Osborne's first book. Osborne was an ambitious business owner from New York, and he was one of 3 co-founders of a thriving advertising agency called Batten, Barton, Durstein and Osborne Incorporated. That is, of course, until 1939, when the agency began to lose money. It was at that turbulent time that Durstein, one of the co-founders, decided to leave the firm. This, however, did not deter Osborne. He remained passionate about the concept of creative thinking and saw ways to encourage his employees with ideas on how they could, in his terms, think up. Osborne's passion for thinking up led him to write his first book in 1942, How to Think Up. It was his passion for creative thinking that empowered Osborne's advertising firm to actually rebound, and by 1951 became only the 2nd advertising agency in the United States to reach the 100 million in sales mark. Wow, 100 million in sales. 1951. That's a lot of money. Osborne's successes continued to fuel his passion for creative thinking, and by 1953 he constructed the concept of brainstorming. From his perspective, brainstorming was driven intentionally and purposefully by 4 basic rules. The first of those 4 rules was to go for large quantities of ideas. So making the most out of the brainstorming session meant that many ideas were submitted and analyzed by the group. The second rule for the brainstorming session was that there should be no criticism of any of the ideas submitted. The third would be to encourage wild and exaggerated ideas. And the fourth was to build on each other's ideas. Now, putting all that together, Osborne believed that brainstorming sessions should consist of 5 to 12 people, comprising various levels of experience, and that these individuals should have plenty of advance notice about the problem that was going to be the focus of the brainstorming session. Osborne also felt that successful brainstorming was to be driven by a facilitator, one that was committed to ensuring that the team members were trained in the rules and techniques of brainstorming prior to the meeting. By 1958, 8 out of 10 of America's largest corporations were utilizing the brainstorming process for idea generation. Other definitions of brainstorming. Osborne's idea certainly took off and led to many other definitions of brainstorming. Let's look at a few of them right now. First off is Merriam-Webster's definition of brainstorming. A group problem, Webster defined brainstorming as a group problem-solving technique that involves the spontaneous contribution of ideas from all members of the group, and continues to say that the mulling over of ideas by one or more individuals in an attempt to devise or find a solution to a problem. Picard had another version of our definition of brainstorming, and Picard defined that as a brainstorm is more than just a basic core dump of information. It is rather an expression of ideas that then feed other ideas and concepts in a cascade of data. It encourages team members to build on one another's concepts and perceptions. It circumvents conventions by encouraging free flow of information. My favorite definition is from the Project Management Institute, who defines brainstorming as a general data gathering and creativity technique that can be used to identify risks, ideas, or solutions to issues by using a group of team members or subject matter experts. Typically, a brainstorm session is structured so that each participant's ideas are recorded for later analysis. So now that we have a better understanding of how the concept of brainstorming began and evolved over the years, and we have a better understanding of various definitions, let's move on to discussing why organizations use brainstorming to begin with. Since its inception, Osborne's original construct of brainstorming has been used globally by corporations, large and small, because it can be applied to nearly any problem. Organizations today understand that brainstorming is adaptable and especially a great process that can be used in a variety of risk management practices, including efforts to identify risk, establish qualification schemes, clarify quantification assumptions, generate potential risk responses, and heighten team bonding. In today's world, the brainstorming process can draw upon project team members, management, customers, and vendors. Virtually any stakeholder can contribute. Not only is the brainstorming process easily adaptable, but when applied to project risk, it can save organizations valuable time and money by helping them to identify risks that may not otherwise have been noticed by the project team. Organizations today are often focused on building highly effective work cultures. When used effectively, brainstorming helps to set and reinforce cultural norms of experimentation and treating others with respect. Brainstorming can also help team members understand how many bad ideas about project risk, and there are many, can lead to a few great ideas that can lead to project success. From an organizational standpoint, brainstorming helps get employees involved in the problem-solving process, helps build employee commitment, loyalty, and enthusiasm by unlocking creative talents of the team members through collaborative team efforts. So the real purpose of our presentation, how does brainstorming work? Using brainstorming as a risk identification technique provides a free and open approach that encourages everyone on the project team to participate. It can result in a greater sense of project risk ownership and a team committed to managing the risk for the duration of the project. There are two approaches to conducting brainstorming sessions. The first approach I'm going to discuss with you here today is the structured approach. In a structured brainstorming, individuals perform divergent thinking processes before they even attend the meeting. This helps the team members to produce some possible or potential solutions they can bring with them to the brainstorming session. Then in the structured meeting, these solutions are presented along with the facts, and the group narrows it down to the right solution. The process generally generates a large volume of ideas from several participants by encouraging each of them to volunteer their creative inputs one at a time. In the unstructured approach, brainstorming sessions, group members give ideas as they come to mind. So one at a time in the structured approach versus team members volunteering information as it comes up. Although this is a more relaxed approach, the most vocal people tend to dominate these sessions and cause others to not participate if they're shy or they don't want their ideas to be criticized. So the unstructured approach is the more popular approach. It's the approach that I utilize more frequently with my teams. However, it can be burdensome when people aren't participating, and getting those people to participate is sometimes a challenge. In both of these approaches, however, there are 6 basic steps that the facilitator and the team should consider. The first is to establish the basic premises of the risk brainstorm and prepare the setting. Because many teams are comprised of work from home working arrangements, many brainstorming sessions are now conducted using technology such as WebEx or Teams. During these sessions, other tools can be used such as Mural to create brainstorming sessions that are interactive and more like being in person. I personally like to use Mural when I facilitate brainstorming sessions, as it even emulates the sticky note process used in many face-to-face sessions. I can organize the Mural board with my main questions and then divide the board into quadrants for each participant to post their responses. I can also organize the Mural board with the high-level deliverables outlined in the work breakdown structure. This will come in handy later in the brainstorming process when the team reviews the information presented and when the facilitator communicates the results after the session is completed. Because Mural is an interactive tool, participants can post their responses in their respective quadrants, and this allows the whole team to see who has posted and who has not posted. And this also helps to ensure that everyone is participating. The next step in the process is to decide who to invite. And this is no task to take lightly. As a facilitator, you'll need to think strategically about who you want to participate in your brainstorming sessions. As Lasborn referenced, a brainstorming session should be comprised of 5 to 12 people. When involved in a smaller project, 12 people or less, it's a great idea to include all team members. But even then, the facilitator will want to exclude any team members where it wouldn't be a good use of their time to participate. After all, time is money, and managing time and money is important for all companies. When project teams are larger, it's imperative to narrow down the participants to those who can provide the best expert judgment about the risks involved with the project. For example, one of my recent projects, the team was comprised of 45 total team members. Most of these team members were from 3 business lines. However, there were also team members from our enterprise risk, procurement, and legal teams, as well as other team members that were from our technology operations group. To ensure I had the right representation for my brainstorming session, I reached out to the project sponsor first. Then I reached out to the operations managers from the 3 business lines, and then the enterprise risk, procurement, and legal teams, as well as the technology group. With each of these individuals, I conducted a brainstorming participant interview to help me determine which individuals from each of these different areas would be best suited for joining our brainstorming team. From each of the business lines, one subject matter expert was selected. One member was selected from each of the enterprise groups. The project sponsor also participated, and then there was myself. So excluding myself, there were 8 total participants, each capable of offering expert judgment pertaining to all impacted areas where risk may occur in our project. The next step in the process is to explain the rules of brainstorming to the group. Although most team members are familiar with brainstorming as a process, it's important to ensure that this is true for all participants. Again, we're dependent on feedback from everybody in the group and that everybody is following the same basic rules of the brainstorming process. They must come to the sessions prepared and understand the 4 rules discussed earlier in this presentation. The next step is to solicit information from the group. Soliciting information from the group depends largely on what approach is taken by the facilitator. Again, Mural is a great tool to use as it provides an opportunity to blend the approaches with each person posting their ideas individually, and then when it comes to the time to review, each person takes a turn to review their idea with the team. From time to time, you may notice that one or more participants again are not contributing. As a facilitator, it's really important that these people become involved, and you should call on them to add their inputs. It's important to set a response time also for the team to provide their information. Because they've been prepared for this information step before the meeting was ever called, I generally use 10 to 15 minute window for everyone to post their ideas before we begin reviewing. The next step is reviewing the information that the team presents. Once the overall responses are in, I begin with one team member to review the information that they presented. It is important to review every response though. Occasionally, a response will be deemed to be not a risk at all. For example, in a recent brainstorming session, one participant responded that we didn't have a test plan and identified that as an actual project risk. However, under further review by the team, it was determined that this was not a risk, not an actual risk, because there was no uncertainty involved with the response. Instead, the response was analyzed further to better understand what risks may be associated with it. In the end, the team settled on testing may take longer than planned. With this response, we were able to generate some uncertainty and sink our teeth into different strategies for how we could address that issue. The last step is to communicate the information after the session is complete. So once all the information is presented and a consensus is attained from the group that the risks identified are in fact project risks, then the facilitator can begin to sort the list by moving them from the participant quadrant to the associated high-level deliverables taken from the work breakdown structure. This will allow the team to see which deliverables have multiple risks associated with them. The team can now review these again and see if the risk can be either consolidated into fewer risks or not. When there are multiple risks associated with a high-level deliverable, I like to flag these as high-level deliverables in Microsoft Project. This allows me to add the risks for the deliverable to the text fields with the risk ID number from the risk log. This also allows for a measure of severity such as low, medium, or high. So far we've learned about many components of what goes into effective brainstorming. Now we need to decide what's the best brainstorming method to get the ball rolling. To do this, we need to ask which technique will generate the best ideas and what techniques will provide the most efficient and productive use of time for all team members. There are many brainstorming techniques to choose from. For the purposes of this presentation, however, we will review at a high level the round robin technique and the brainwriting technique. Brainwriting is an idea generation technique where participants write down their ideas about popular questions for a few minutes without talking. Then the facilitator will ask each person to pass his or her ideas to the next person, who uses them as a trigger for adding or refining their own ideas. This brainstorming technique is a simple alternative to conventional brainstorming. The process repeats for 10 to 15 minutes, and with all the data collected, the brainstorming team will then review the information and prioritize the risks. This process helps to reduce team member anxiety while also reducing the amount of extraneous talking that can happen during regular brainstorming sessions. The round robin technique is a brainstorming technique that allows all participants the opportunity to participate without having to be in the same room. For my project teams, we use the virtual whiteboard called Mural, as we discussed earlier. The round robin approach is a modification to the freeform approach of brainstorming, which seeks to balance out the relative strengths and personalities within the team. The process starts with a how might we question. For example, how might we address human resources constraints for the project? Each team member is given a quadrant on the Mural board, and then each team member will post a virtual sticky note on the Mural board with a potential solution, or solutions for that matter. When complete, then the team is asked to move down one swim lane on the Mural board to another person. Here they are asked to consider the ideas in that swim lane and add further suggestions to the idea. This process is completed until one full rotation reveals that there are no further ideas or suggestions. From there, the team is asked to pick their top 3 ideas from the board by posting an icon on the sticky note. For us, we use little smiley faces that are available within Mural. The sticky notes that are then ranked in the order of responses from the highest to the lowest from the team. So the sticky notes that have the most team member icons on them are prioritized first, and then all the way down to the least. Brainstorming pros. When brainstorming events are carried out in an effective manner, there are many benefits, such as the generation of new perspectives from team members who, outside of the brainstorming event, may never have brought these important perspectives to the project. Many times team members sit in the silos and do not bring their ideas forward because they feel that they may not have value or that there's no interest from management. Brainstorming allows those ideas to get outside of the individual and into the group and then explored for opportunities for the project. Team bonding opportunities is a big plus of the brainstorming effort. As we learned earlier, team bonding helps to promote ownership of project risks throughout the life cycle of the project. Another benefit is the rapid idea generation can lead to many possible ways to identify project risks as well as potential solutions for how to manage those risks throughout the life cycle of the project. And for my opinion, the best benefit to brainstorming is that the concept is easily understood and can be easily facilitated if the proper steps are taken to structure the brainstorming session before it occurs. Which leads us to brainstorming cons, because the opposite is unfortunately true for brainstorming events that are not carried out in an effective manner. And these could lead to devastating and time-wasting efforts on behalf of several team members. When this occurs, there's a large potential for chaos to erupt during the brainstorming session and making it difficult for the facilitator to manage the process. There's also potential for limited engagement by team members who deem the process not worthy of their time and efforts, or who may be shy or concerned about receiving any criticism from other team members because of their inputs. And lastly, some scholars believe that brainstorming efforts can actually lead to a loss of creative performance. What do you think? In conclusion, this presentation has taken us on a brainstorming journey that has revealed many lessons. We've learned that since its inception, brainstorming perspectives have changed and have been adapted to focus on many different types of organizational problems. We've also learned that brainstorming is a well-defined process with multiple structures, techniques, pros and cons. Overall, the lessons learned throughout this presentation have revealed that brainstorming can be an effective tool for identification of project risk. These are the references that I used to compile my presentation here today, and you'll see several. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.